Hello and welcome to the Supernatural Track here at Continual. I'm your host, Gail Martin, and tonight we are talking about picks and pans of seasons 13 through 15. What were our favorites, and what were the episodes that maybe we think the series could have done without, or at least could have done differently? Before we launch into that, let's let our wonderful panelists introduce themselves, starting with Carole.
Hi, I'm Carole Stokes. I became a Supernatural fan in season 3. I started writing fanfic in 2012, and now as Ellis Colton, I write contemporary and paranormal romance.
Very good. Lola?
My name's Lola Lariscy. I've been a fan of Supernatural since that first episode 20 years ago, and I write sci-fi and paranormal fiction.
Very good. Elektra?
I'm Elektra Hammond. I'm a writer and an editor, and I specialize in alternate history. And I've been watching Supernatural since that very first episode.
And I'm Gail Martin, and Morgan Bryce. As Gail, I write epic and urban fantasy. As Morgan, I write urban fantasy, male paranormal romance. I was late to the game with Supernatural, fell in love halfway through season 11, binge watched 11 seasons in time for season 12, and fell down the rabbit hole and really haven't seen the light of day ever since. But I love the show, and it has been a huge inspiration to me. So all good things come to an end. Now we keep hoping that we will see more new material with Supernatural. We're still, wonderfully getting the conventions and the actor appearances. They keep teasing us that there may be something more down the line story-wise, and we have our fingers crossed for that. But let's look at those last 3, 13, 14, and 15 seasons. There were some gems. There were some that might be arguable about that. Let's start with the favorites. Carole, give us one of your favorites from those seasons.
Disclaimer, these are not my favorite seasons of Supernatural. But there are some things to rejoice about. I really enjoyed episode 17, The Thing. It's a real kind of old school horror thing. We have a portal into a different space dimension, and we have a beautiful young woman who turns out to not be quite what we think she is. And in the end, we have this great confrontation with a big tentacly monster, very ancient ones / Cthulhu-y. And I really love stuff like that. And I love that kind of old time horror stuff. And they played it off really, really well. So I really enjoyed that episode.
Okay, Lola?
Okay, so I goofed up a little bit. Even though I saw that it said seasons 13 through 15, my brain went and just kind of did everything. So why don't you come back to me?
Okay, Elektra?
Just to be clear, are we doing 13 first, or are we doing all of them?
We can do all of them. I think we just kind of defaulted to 13, but start wherever you want.
I just want to know how you're formatting it. We've done both formats on these.
We can
So
jump around.
pick
That's
one.
perfectly fine. Go wherever you want to go.
Go wherever I want to go. Okay, if we're jumping around, I'm going to go to season 14 and grab the 13th episode of that season, which was Lebanon, because that is one of my absolute favorite episodes of the entire run.
Yes.
All 15 seasons. The one season where we get to see the boys and their parents, and what do? They sit down and they have a nice family dinner. And we get to see all of them together. It doesn't really matter what they're eating as long as there's pie. And it's just absolutely wonderful to see all of them together. And it's also neat to see what the difference between what Dean thinks he wants in his heart desire and what his heart desire really is.
Mhm.
And it's a joyful episode, at least for me. And the way John walks away from it as, I had a great dream and I'll tell you about it.
Mhm.
Back
Yeah,
in the
that's
past.
just that's up there with some of the perfect episodes, or
Yeah,
nearly so.
pretty
Um,
much.
back to you, Lola.
All right, so Mint Condition, season 14. I just love anything nerdy or geeky having to do with like action figures. And it was actually really scary and kind of funny at the same time.
Okay. Well, it's not going to surprise anybody that I'm picking Scooby Natural.
Yes.
I mean, really, you saw that coming.
I
I
didn't put it on my list. I left it for you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I wondered if you guys were going to do that. I have loved Scooby-Doo since the original cartoons came out. And when they put Scooby-Doo and Supernatural together, it was like, oh my gosh, it's Christmas. And I thought they did a good job that paid homage to both properties and didn't yes, there were side jokes and all of that, but it didn't take advantage or harm one at the to the advantage of the other. Treated both properties with respect, and I really appreciated that as a fan of both. And it was just, of course, Dean would have seen Scooby Doo on the road. Of course, he would have seen it growing up in those hotel rooms, and he would have felt some sort of kinship with these kids who fight monsters, even if their monsters weren't real. And maybe sometimes, maybe a little bit, he kind of wished that his had rubber masks too. So I just, that I thought was a brilliant thing for them to pull off, and I thought they handled it very well. So I was pleased as a fan of both properties. Pardon me. Back to you, Carol.
All right, so I'm just going to cut right to the chase then. I'm going for the series finale.
Which one?
The finale.
Ah, as opposed to the penultimate finale, which is also sort of the finale.
It is, and they're both, I actually have them together, but I'm not going to be greedy and talk about both of them. So this is 1520. Carry on. I absolutely loved that episode, even as I cried my heart out during the entire second half. And every time I watch it, I cry my heart out for the entire second half. The first half, we get a beautiful slice of life. They're living in the bunker, and they're just kind of like, there they are, the confirmed bachelors, and making toast and doing laundry, and clearly comfortable, at ease, at peace. There's no big angel demon wars going on anymore. Um, and that's really nice. And they go to they're like, okay, we got to go out, we got this thing, and the thing they have to go to is a pie festival. you know and it's just really sweet. And Sam, bonking Dean with pie and saying how long he's wanted to do that, and that all is just really delightful. Then they catch a monster case, and they save the kids, but it goes horribly wrong. And we have the absolute tearjerker scene where Dean and Sam have to say goodbye to each other. And I know at the time a lot of people argued that they felt that was not a noble way for Dean to go. But, it really was, because every single mission that they went out on, every single case that they went out on, they could have died. And we're just skipping the fact that sometimes they did die. That aside,
And
that
Sam.
risk was in every single time they got into the Impala and went out, that could have happened. And the fact that it was in fact such a kind of commonplace thing that happened speaks to the level of danger they always had to deal with. And so for me, it was entirely fitting that it was something so simple and ordinary that happened. Um, you know, it just made sense to me. Um, and the dialogue then between the brothers is exquisite, exquisitely written, exquisitely performed. Jensen and Jared infused it with so much of their own emotion because of the show ending, and their close relationship. Even here we are at the very end, and we have new insights because we learn about Dean waiting outside Sam's apartment, for hours because he was afraid Sam wouldn't speak to him. And we hear about how much he admired Sam. Sam, who had always hero worshipped his older brother, even when, he knew that Dean had flaws. Nonetheless, Dean always was, on this pedestal for him. And here's Dean telling him how much he admired Sam. And then making Sam promise to not bring him back, that this was the time. Don't do it. We've done it. We're not doing it again. This is it. So that's, of course, just so heartbreaking, but like I said, beautifully done. And then we have this whole little interlude of seeing Sam with a son, or presumed son, adopted son, Dean's son, his son, whoever. He had a son, and he raised that son in the life that he never got to have.
He hit him with a car and picked him up and took him to the, oh, wait, no, sorry. That was the dog.
And, and interspersed with that, we see Dean greeting Bobby and Dean driving Baby through these gorgeous mountains in heaven. And both of those stories are beautiful. And then the crowning moment, of course, is the reunion on the bridge. Dean's leaning on there. He doesn't even have to turn around, and you see the smile on his face. And he's like, hey, Sam, and Sam's there. And if I wasn't already crying, I was crying by then because they're reunited, and their pain and suffering and fighting is all over, and they can just be at peace now. And it's just a fabulous send off to me. Beautifully done, beautifully shot, no emotion spared. And it just, for me, didn't get any better than that. And to have that be the final note was just perfect.
Okay, Lola?
Okay, so I'm going for, this one has funny moments. The whole episode, I wouldn't say the whole episode is one of my favorites, but it's just so funny. All right, it's season 13, episode 21, Beat the Devil. And I like it because that's where Rowena and Gabriel have sex, and it's just so hilarious because you see them toppling out behind the curtains and they're all askew and trying to get dressed and everything. And it's just like, it's such a shocker, but it's so funny too, and it makes perfect sense. I'm like, of course. I mean, Rowena, I mean, she just wants to have sex, I'm sure. And she would probably think it was a kick, hey, this is an archangel who's like completely kind of off his rocker a little bit. Let's do this thing. And I get the feeling Gabriel was probably the same way, this is a 300-year-old witch. Let's do this thing. And so I just thought that was very funny. I also, another thing that I liked about it, so even though I didn't really like the alternative universe, I liked the way they had the portal open. You could just see like the lightning bolts of orange open up. That was kind of cool.
Very good. Elektra?
Sorry about that. Season 15, episode 11, The Gamblers. Part of that has to do with just how much I love playing pool, and I enjoyed watching them play. And part of it is, I think it's a really well-written episode, showing them playing the con game because they absolutely can play it well. And just the idea that they could be down on their luck and that it really and truly showed them to be the heroes that they were. Because sometimes they were saving the world And sometimes they were just saving people who needed help. And that showed just who the boys were
Mhm.
as we were running down towards the finale. It just showed who they were to the core. And it made such a beautiful, beautiful episode. We weren't just going to save the world. Damn it, we're going to save the people in this bar. They
Yeah.
need us. And that's all it took. You know, sometimes it's a guy who needs killing, and sometimes it's some people who just need saving. And either
Uh,
way, Dean's your guy.
yeah. Yeah. I'm going with mint condition. It's season 13. It was Sam and Dean get attacked by action figures, haunted and possessed action figures, because why not? It's a hobby shop where things go wrong. Comic book shop. Sam and Samantha get locked inside. Samantha's one of the people who runs the shop. Um, Dean has to rescue them. There's all kinds of magic running amok, but there is this action hero named Panthro with a pair of nunchucks who keeps coming after them. And it's just such a wonderful mashup of poking fun at fanboys of any kind. And we've all known them, and some of us are them. But just what would happen, what would really happen if you ran into some of those comic book characters? Probably nothing good. And that's exactly what we find out in this episode. And it was just fun watching Sam especially be in over his head with comic book characters. And of course, he's a hero and he transcends this. But you know, there were some great moments of being just mightily flummoxed. Carol, back to you.
So now I'll do the penultimate one. Season 15, episode 19, which could well have served as the finale. In fact, by the time this episode was over, I was thinking, how can there be one more episode? Because they wrapped everything up, it seemed like. It seems like everything is really just going horribly wrong. Chuck seems to have all the cards. He's pulling all the strings. We're like, how are the boys going to, you know, beat him? But they do, and they do it by letting him wail on them. I mean, he really kicks the crap out of them. And they're on this, in fact, incredibly scenic, you know, river or lake or sound or whatever. But he is beating the tar out of them, and yet it's all a ruse for them to like funnel his via Jack, funnel his strength into them, and they, I don't know, but they win. They win. In the end, they're looking at each other and they're laughing and they're smiling, and Chuck is like, what? And they've like bled off all his power, and he's now powerless. He's just like, you know, a little man, and they've won. They win. Um and Jack repopulates the earth. And
Not personally.
yeah, he
Good
brings all the
point.
people back that vanished. He does not repopulate it personally. So all the people are back, and the dogs and everything. And and the boys actually are like sitting on a table in the bunker looking at each other and going, wow, like we did that and we're free. You know, the burden of that whole, you know, years long struggle between, you know, Michael and Lucifer and angels and demons and all this stuff is done. And Jack has said there's no more. There'll still be monsters. There'll still be things, you know, creatures of the night and that kind of thing to deal with. But the whole angel demon thing, the gates are all closed. It's all done. That burden is lifted from them. And we get to see them just kind of driving off into the sunset. And it was a wonderful ending. It was a wonderful ending. And really, yeah, I was like, what are they going to do next week? There's like one more episode, which of course, as I've already discussed, they managed to, you know. So yeah, this too, beautifully done, really solid. It was great to see them finally get out from underneath Chuck's feet and reclaim the earth. You know, it's called inherit the earth, and that's what they do. They get to reclaim the earth and put everybody away, and it's really, really terrific.
Okay. Lola?
All right, so this is more of a concept. There, this happens in a specific episode, but it's not that I love the whole episode. So one of the things that makes me chill is when an archangel enters a human and you see the wings flap around them like in shadow. It's so cool. And so when alternate universe Michael enters Dean, even though I hate alternate universe Michael, I just went, whoa. It was one of the episodes, season 14, I think.
Okay. Um, Elektra?
Yeah. Before all the cool stuff that happens in Inherit the Earth, there is despair. That is season 15, episode 18. And unlike Carole, these are some of my favorite seasons. And I love to death the very ending, even if it was ending. In despair, we find out what Billy's plan really is as things proceed to go to hell, quite literally. Jack is exploding. Um, we're they're getting rid of Billy's plan because they realize it's not going to work. Jack ends up in the empty, so he can explode there. Um, we start losing the hunters. We lose everybody that anyone cares about. We lose alternate world Charlie, who's finally trying to make a life for herself again. And we get the most touching scene in the world where Castiel finally pours out his heart to Dean and has his moment of true happiness, at which time the empty eats him too. And while it's at it, it takes Billy and solves their little problem with Billy. Um, that makes me cry every time I see it, and I still love it to death. It's I love this episode, but it makes me cry because it's so well done and it realizes so many plot threads that they've been putting together since the middle, I think, of season 14. And they weave them together through all of 15, and now we're in the end game and we cannot stop.
Okay. I am going to go with Advanced Thanatology, which is in season 13, because it's just a good, creepy horror episode. You've got a haunted hospital with a doctor wearing a plague mask with a drill, because doctors always carry drills. Um, and if you are dumb enough to go in a haunted hospital at night, do not try on the plague masks. Just don't. But of course, the teenage boys do, and tragedy ensues. And the horror story underlying the episode is good. But what's really happening here is the interplay between Dean and Sam and Billy. Because Sam is trying to cheer Dean up, he even takes him out to a strip club, and, and is worried when that doesn't really work. Dean's basically suicidal because he feels like he has failed so much. And so he he kills himself ostensibly to save, to get to the spirit realm so he can save one of the kids. But the Reaper freaks out the Reaper when she realizes who he is, sends in the next highest one, and they find out that Billy is now a Reaper. And there's this conversation between Billy and Dean where he's seen so much terrible stuff. He's so tired, and he's just trying to go on from here. And he does come back, and Billy sends him back, but because she says that she's looked at all his possible deaths, and this is not one of the ways he's meant to die. And when Sam tries to talk to him about it the next day, of course, Dean doesn't want to tell him, but Sam stays at it, and Dean ends up telling him the truth. And yeah, it doesn't make Sam feel any better, but at least Sam's getting the truth out of him. And then at the end, while they're driving, Dean gets a call, and Cass, who's been missing for a while, shows up. So it's an episode that raises some questions and solves, at least starts to solve some issues with Cass shows back up. But it's just a good, solid horror episode, as well as some character development between the brothers. Carol?
Last holiday, season 15, episode 14. Uh, the bunker's starting to run a little rocky, but they turns out there's a wood nymph who lives in the bunker, and it's her power that had powered so many things. And so actually the bunker's only been running on like half power this entire time. Um, she is so, she is just great. She's this little woman in like a tweed suit. But she's enormously powerful, but also like really cute. And she decides to give them all the holidays they haven't been having. So like they come in and here's this giant Christmas tree, and she's made cookies, and she's just like dancing around, chirping in her little apron. And at first the boys are like, what? But they love it. I mean, they never had this stuff. And they're carving pumpkins and they're having birthday cakes. And she hands them little brown paper lunch bags when they go off, to go on a hunt and everything. And it's all of this fun and nurturing and caring motherly things that they never had. And or at least, I know somewhere, Dean would try to do some of this stuff for Sam, but he just didn't have the resource. So here is somebody taking care of them and ironing their underwear and giving them every, Thanksgiving that they never had. Um, and so that's all really, it's funny, it's delightful. Of course, it's supernatural. So something goes wrong. And there's like the dark underside to this, which is that she was actually like enslaved by the men of letters. So that part wasn't too good. And they manipulated her and brainwashed her so that she felt she had to take care of them. And it was really, there was some real ugliness when they lifted up that rock, to see what was underneath it. It was not pretty. But they're able to bring it to a good conclusion where she is finally free of all of this lasting kind of brainwashing and everything. And she's goes back to go be with her forest because she's been away from her forest for years because she's a wood nymph, so she misses her woods. Um, and and the boys got to have this wonderful little interlude, which they really they really appreciated, and they were very fond of her and stuff. Although she has this little last thing where they're talking about the telescope, and she's like, "Oh yes, because you can see everything in the telescope." And Dean's like, "You can't see," or Sam says, "You can't see anything in the telescope." And she's like, "Oh, well, that's not good," you know. But it's really delightful, really a great example of how supernatural will take, the funny and the humor and the touching, and then contrast it with the not so nice and having to deal with those dark and rocky issues. And it's really, really well done.
Okay. Lola?
You're muted, Lola.
I did that because of my dogs. So this is more of a concept. It's in Galaxy Brain, season 15, episode 3, but it's when Rowena sacrifices herself. And I love that. I shouldn't love it because I love Rowena, but I love it because it's like the most selfless thing she could do. When we met her, she was horrible. She was manipulating these women to become witches and then just killing them when she didn't want them anymore. I mean, she was awful. But through the years, we've seen her kind of grow attached to the boys, and she kind of starts to care about the world a little bit, not just her place in it, but she cares about people around her. So to have her sacrifice herself, willingly go into hell to become the queen of hell, it really means a lot. But also, I'm sure she loved the idea of being queen. But that's still on brand for her. So I just loved Rowena in that episode.
Okay. Elektra?
Okay, just a note, that's the rupture, that episode.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay.
That's
Um,
what I get for looking at AI. They say AI is
um,
the
I,
future.
I, I'm, I so wanted to like grab another one from season 15 because I love them so much, but I'm gonna slip back to episode 13, the very last episode, Exodus, where I think it's the last one, where they're finally pulling people out of Apocalypse World on a bus till they get to the rift. It is the episode where we lose Gabriel. It's the episode where Rowena almost kills herself getting everybody out of Apocalypse World. We bring all the hunters there, and Lucifer gets stuck there with Michael, and that's how we end up getting Lucifer and Michael teamed up. It's a really well put together episode. It's got a lot of tension, a lot of excitement there with Rowena trying desperately to stay awake and deal with things, and everything would have been fine if she hadn't messed up just a little bit with Lucifer and he slipped through the rift, and she lost her source of archangel grace. But she really pulls it together. She does a great job of acting like someone who's absolutely exhausted, but held it together for the boys. And they brought back like a battalion of people, even as the rift is slowly getting smaller. It's a really, really good one.
Okay. Um, Last call. This is where Sam and Dean split up on cases. Sam is obsessed with having Cass or somebody probe the wound he got from God and see what they can learn from it. And Dean's restless and he finds a case with the missing woman. And it leads him to a roadhouse called Swayze's, which I hope I don't have to explain to anybody. Uh, look up your 80s lexicon. Um, but in at Swayze's, Dean meets up with an old friend named Lee. And they go back apparently to the hunting years when Sam was off at college and they've been buddies forever. And even though they're having a wonderful reunion, you just get this feeling that being supernatural, this can't be as good as it seems. And of course, it isn't, because there is still a woman missing, and we keep flicking back and forth between Dean doing this case and being at the roadhouse, and Sam working with Cass, and then a kind of sketchy healer named Sergey who comes to the bunker to help probe the wound, which just sounds terrible, and find some of the supernatural elements about that. Um, and this eventually gives Sam some insight into Chuck's memories and that he's weak, and eventually that gives him hope that they can beat God. But in the meantime, Dean's poking around after the evening at the bar, and he goes up on stage and sings with Lee, and he finds a car with the missing woman's body in the trunk. And then he gets knocked out and he finds himself in the basement of the bar having his blood drip out. And there's a monster that drains blood from people. And Lee, unfortunately, was in on the scam. And so, the fight ensues and Dean leaves, and um, Dean kills the monster, and they overcome the problem. But Dean and Lee fight, and Dean ends up killing his old buddy. Then he goes back to the bunker and gets back in on everything with Sam. But it was an interesting insight into some of Dean's time when Sam was away. We got to see Dean sing, and just the whole nod to the Roadhouse thing was a lot of fun, and it was a darn good scary episode. Carole, back to you.
I'm gonna move into pans. I'm all done with picks.
Okay.
There was so much to choose from.
There were some wonderful episodes and some that I won't go back to on every rewatch.
Yeah. Season 13, episode 8, The Scorpion and the Frog. It was just, it played on the whole story about the scorpion and the frog, and the scorpion helps the frog, but he stings him anyway. And I mean, it's just, it was very convoluted. It was one of those things where they needed to do something. Well, somebody would help them if Sam and Dee did something for them, and then someone would help that if they did. So there was this whole little chain of people doing, of favors. And if one fell apart, they all fell apart. Well, they all fall apart. And it was just very convoluted. And, trying to keep track of who's doing what for who and why. And then at the end, it's for nothing, because the thing they were trying to get gets destroyed. So, like, they went through all of this stuff for nothing. And we went through it too.
Well, trust
And that
circles
was
are
45
hard.
That was 45 minutes I'm never getting back.
Trust circles only work if you can trust the people you're doing them with.
Yeah.
Tell you that ahead of time.
Lola?
All right, so I'm going broad here. I just hate oh God, I wrote Amadeus. What's his name? Uh Colonel Sanders, what's his name? What's that guy with the
Asmodeus.
Osmodeus. See, I think it auto-corrected in my defense. I think I wrote Osmodeus and it auto-corrected, but I just hated him. Like my skin crawled anytime he was on screen. I can't watch those episodes because he looks like an evil Colonel Sanders.
You can
he's
just call him that.
I do. I call him evil Colonel Sanders. He's horrible. He doesn't even have any fried chicken. If he does, it's made out of the bones of children or something. Ugh, gross. And his accent, I'm sorry, I'm from the South. I've lived here my whole life. And if anyone does that kind of accent, it just makes me want to punch them. I'm just like, get that out of your mouth. That no one talks like that. No one talks like that. And his stupid white suit and his beard, and he looked like an 80s like ballad singer with just that hair. Richard Marx hair. I just hated him.
Okay. Elektra?
Okay. Yeah, Gail, close your ears.
Okay.
Wayward Sisters, season 13, episode 10. This is one of my favorites, although I know that some people here do not like Claire, and that ruins the episode for them.
That was the episode I was going to use as a pan, but go ahead.
Well, you still can. You can tell them why you don't like it. I loved the idea of all the women involved in this episode, particularly Jody and Donna, who are both law enforcement, getting together and sort of training up some, young women to be hunters, because girl power hunters. Yeah, I loved that idea a whole lot. And I love the idea of Jody and Donna going off and being, seasoned hunters who knew what the hell they were doing and kicked ass and took names. And I really, really wanted it to work. I also love the way they bookended things at the very beginning of the episode when Jody calls Claire and says something like, Sam and Dean were on a trip and they're missing. I need you to come home. That callback to the very first episode, if that was going to end up being a pilot, it was just close to a perfect way to do it. It was so much better than Bloodlines.
Oh, this is
I
true.
wanted this one bad. Oh.
Well, and my reason for picking Wayward Sisters as a pan is not that it wasn't a great concept. I just didn't think the execution completely nailed it. Some of that was not quite buying into the characters and the actresses. I really liked the idea I thought it could have been solid. I just didn't buy those people in those parts. It just didn't sell it to me. So had it been cast differently, had the characters been written slightly differently, I thought that the concept was really good. It just didn't gel for me. But clearly, your mileage may vary. Well,
I
folks,
know, I think I'm the only one who liked it.
a great concept. Um,
I will die on the hill that if they had focused on Jody and Donna and then had some of the younger people, being coached by, led by, trained by Jody and Donna, it could have gone a whole
mhm.
different. It could have worked.
Instead
You
of
know?
making them immediate principals equal
Yes,
to Jody and
they were
Donna.
thrust into the forefront with no training and no nothing and all of this stuff, and yet we were supposed to believe that they could do all this stuff like out of the box. And
Oh, well, not just no
that
training. We didn't have a reason to care about them. We cared
right,
about Jody and Donna. We
right. We
needed
were
time
already
to care
we
about
were
the others.
yeah, we were already heavily invested in Jody and Donna and could totally believe them as being the leaders of this new group,
Hmm.
and which was actually the very first concept of this. When we first
Hmm.
heard about it, it was supposed to be Jody and Donna leading this, and then they decided to go this whole other way. And for me, that whole trio, Patience, Bad Place, Wayward Sisters, was just mishandled, you
Hmm.
know. And uh, you know, through no fault, I mean, of the actresses or anything. I mean, they did, what they were supposed to do and everything, but the
Yeah.
it could have been it could have been a contender.
They were trying to attract an audience that wasn't us.
Right.
Yeah,
They
and
were
it
trying
just
to attract a younger audience, and
Never worked.
that actress was in stuff we don't watch.
Hmm. Well, folks, we have come to the end of our time, and I want to make sure we all have a chance to go around and tell us where we can find you, and if you have any new, recent, or upcoming stuff, let us know. And if you just have to mention one more thing because you didn't get it in, now's the time to slip it in. Carole?
you can find me on Facebook in just on Facebook and in the continual Facebook group and in the Supernatural TFWNC group as Ellis Colton. All of my social media and links, including my newsletter sign up, are at elliscolton.com. My latest book, The Malevolent Sea, is out on Amazon. And I have just put my book, The Silver Dragon, into Kindle Unlimited. So check that out.
Awesome. Lola?
My name's Lola Lariscy. I haven't had much time to write lately because I've surrounded myself by too many animals, including a little frog that I need to get when we get off this. But you can find me online just about anywhere. Google my name, me, and a bunch of old ladies will come up. All the old ladies are dead at this point, and I don't know if they were pigs and pans because I never knew them. Hopefully they were pigs.
Elektra?
I'm Elektra Hammond. You can find me at untilmidnight.com. I do most of my socials these days on Mastodon, and join us Mastodon at 7 p.m. on Mondays, where we answer four questions on a random topic using hashtag #WriteFant. Everybody is welcome to join in, and it's fun and silly.
Fun and silly sounds like a great idea. I'm Gail C. Martin and Morgan Bryce. As Gail, I write epic and urban fantasy. As Morgan, I write urban fantasy, male paranormal romance. Um, but all of the books have the underlying things that I absolutely love in supernatural, with the ghosts and the magic and all of the spooky stuff. And I've got some new books coming out this fall. They're not quite ready to talk about, but you'll hear about them when they come. In the meantime, you can find me here on Continual. So thank you so much for being here, and thank you to our panelists. Thanks to all of you for watching and listening. There will be more Supernatural coming up on Continual, so we'll see you online.